The man in the gray jacket had been standing at the host stand for 4 minutes. 16 people saw it. Not one of them said a word. His name was Edmund Lawal. He was 43 years old. He had a carry-on bag at his feet and a boarding pass in his breast pocket for a flight that didn't leave for another 6 hours. He had chosen the Meridian Club Lounge at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport because it was quiet, and because he had been a member for 11 years, and because he needed to finish reading a 70-page contract before he landed in London the following morning. He had not expected this. The woman behind the host stand was maybe 25. Her name tag said Brittany. She had looked up when Edmund walked in, looked back down at her screen, and then looked up again with an expression that was not quite a smile. "Can I help you?" she said. Edmund told her his membership number. He told her his name. He set his boarding pass on the counter. Brittany typed something. She looked at the screen. She typed something else. "I'm not seeing it," she said. Edmund said he had been a member since 2013. He said he could pull up the app on his phone. He reached into his jacket pocket, and Brittany took a small step back, which was something Edmund noticed and filed away, and did not say anything about. He found the app. He showed her the screen. Platinum status. 11 years, 2 months. Brittany looked at the phone. She looked at Edmund. She looked at the phone again. "I'm going to need to call my manager," she said. Edmund said that was fine. The lounge behind her was half full. There were businessmen at laptop tables, and a woman in a blazer reading a paperback and a group of 4 near the window who were laughing about something. A man in a United Pilot uniform was eating a sandwich near the bar. None of them were watching Edmund, but some of them were aware of him in the way that people become aware of something without looking directly at it. The manager's name was Derek Soule. He was 32, broad-shouldered, and he walked out from behind a glass partition with the specific energy of a man who has already decided something before he's heard it. He did not introduce himself. He looked at Edmund's phone, held it at arm's length, and handed it back. "Sir," he said, "we've had some issues with duplicated accounts in our system. I'm going to need a physical membership card." Edmund said he hadn't carried a physical card in 4 years. He said the app was the card. He said this was printed clearly on the membership portal. Derek folded his arms. "I understand that," he said, "but without physical verification, I can't let you through." Edmund asked to speak with someone above Derek. Derek said he was the senior manager on duty. Edmund asked for the name of Derek's direct supervisor. Derek said that information was not something he was at liberty to share. There was a pause, not a long one, but the kind of pause where both men know exactly what is happening, and one of them is betting the other won't say it out loud. Edmund said, "Is there something else going on here?" Derek looked at him. "Excuse me? I've been standing here for 8 minutes. I've shown you my membership number, my boarding pass, my name, and a live app with my platinum status. I'm curious what other verification exists that you haven't asked for." Derek's jaw tightened. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. There are other guests. There's no one behind me," Edmund said. He was right. The space behind him was empty. Derek glanced back at Brittany. Brittany looked at her screen. "I'm going to need you to step aside," Derek said again. "Or I'm going to have to call airport security." 19 people were in that lounge. At least 8 of them had turned by now. A man with reading glasses had lowered his laptop screen. The woman in the blazer had stopped turning pages. The group of 4 near the window had gone quiet. Edmund did not step aside. He also did not raise his voice. He reached into his jacket pocket and removed a business card and placed it on the counter. "Before you call security," he said, "I'd like you to read that." Derek looked at the card the way people look at things they'd rather not deal with. He picked it up. He read it. He read it again. The card said, "Edmund Lawal, Regional Vice President, North F America, Meridian Hospitality Group." The Meridian Club Lounge was a Meridian Hospitality property. Had been for 6 years. Edmund had signed the contract that made it so. Derek's face did something complicated. Edmund picked up his carry-on bag. He looked at Brittany, whose face had gone very still, and then he looked at Derek, who was still holding the business card. "I have a flight at 11:45, Edmund said. "I'd like a quiet table near the window." Nobody spoke. Then Derek says, "Of course," and his voice came out smaller than he intended. What happened in the 7 minutes after that was the part people didn't talk about when they told the story later. But it was the part that mattered. Edmund sat down at a table near the window. A server named Patrice brought him a still water without being asked and said, "Welcome back, Mr. Lawal," because Patrice had worked the lounge for 9 years and recognized a platinum member when she saw one, regardless of what the system said. Derek disappeared behind the glass partition. Brittany straightened a stack of papers that did not need straightening. A man from the group of four near the other window stood up and walked over. He was maybe 55, tan, wearing a fleece vest with a company logo on it. He stopped at Edmund's table. "I'm sorry," the man said. "I heard all of that, and I should have said something sooner." He paused. "That was wrong." Edmund looked at him for a moment. "Thank you," Edmund said, and he meant it, even though it was late. The man went back to his group. Edmund opened his contract. For a while, the lounge was quiet, the way airports get quiet in that specific mid-morning hour before the lunch rush, all hum and distant announcement and the occasional drag of a rolling bag across tile. The woman in the blazer went back to her book. The man with the glasses opened his laptop again. Edmund read. He made notes in the margin, in the small, precise handwriting he had developed in law school and never lost. He was 43 years old. He had started with Meridian as a junior associate 20 years ago and had worked in 4 countries and had managed portfolios worth more than $900 million and had once, in 2019, personally negotiated a lease dispute that saved a Meridian property in Denver from a litigation that would have cost the company $11 million. He was, by any measure, good at his job. He was also a black man in a gray jacket sitting in an airport lounge where, 11 minutes ago, a manager had called security rather than read an app. He thought about that while he read his contract. He did not let it stop him from reading the contract. 2 days later, Edmund Lawal was in London. He was sitting in a glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor of a building in Canary Wharf. Across a table from 3 executives who had flown in from Frankfurt and one who had taken the train from Edinburgh, and they were all waiting to hear what he had to say about the proposed acquisition of a regional hotel brand that would add 42 properties to the Meridian portfolio across the UK and Ireland. Edmund talked for 40 minutes. He used 4 slides. He answered 11 questions. At the end of it, the executive from Edinburgh said, "I came in skeptical, and I'm leaving convinced." And the woman from Frankfurt said she wanted to move to final review by the end of the quarter. Edmund shook hands and caught his car back to the hotel and sat on the edge of the bed for a while, before he showered and changed for dinner. He thought about Derek. Not with anger, exactly. More with a kind of tiredness that he had learned to carry. The way you carry something heavy long enough that you stop noticing the weight, except in the moments when you put it down and suddenly feel how much lighter you could be. He thought about what Derek had seen when Edmund walked in, a man in a gray jacket with a carry-on bag. He thought about the moment Derek's arm extended to hold the business card at a distance, and the smaller version of that same gesture he had seen hundreds of times in hundreds of rooms. In 20 years, the slight recalibration of eye contact, the almost imperceptible pause before the handshake. He had never stopped being surprised by it. He thought that was important, that he had never stopped being surprised. The call came on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after Atlanta, while Edmund was in a breakfast meeting in Chicago. He stepped out. The voice on the phone was a woman named Gloria Park, who was the senior director of member experience for Meridian, and she was calling to inform Edmund that the Atlanta Hartsfield location had conducted an internal review following a complaint that had been filed. Edmund had not filed a complaint. It took him a moment to understand what Gloria was telling him. The complaint had been filed by the man in the fleece vest. His name turned out to be Arthur Benton. He was a retired school principal from Savannah, Georgia, who had been flying to visit his daughter in Seattle and had sat in that lounge. and watched what happened and had, 3 days later, sat down at his kitchen table and written out a 6-page account and sent it to Meridian's member services office with his contact information and a note that said he was available to speak to anyone who wanted to follow up. Arthur Benton had not been a Meridian member. He had been traveling on a companion pass with his daughter's credit card. He had no stake in the outcome. He had just thought someone should say something, so he said something. Gloria told Edmund that Derek Soule had been placed on administrative leave, pending a full review of member complaints at the Atlanta location. She said Brittany had provided a written account corroborating the timeline. She said the company was sorry, and she said it in a way that sounded like she meant it, which Edmund noticed. He thanked her and hung up. He stood in the hallway outside the conference room for a moment, listening to the ambient noise of a Chicago hotel. In the morning, carts rolling, someone laughing down the hall, a phone ringing and stopping. He thought about Arthur Benton sitting at a kitchen table in Savannah, writing 6 pages about something that had happened to a stranger. He thought about that for a long time. Later, when people asked Edmund about the Atlanta incident, he never led with what had happened to him. He led with Arthur Benton, he said. A man I had never met, with no reason to get involved, sat down and wrote 6 pages because he thought it was the right thing to do. He didn't know who I was. He didn't know anything would come of it. He just thought someone should say something. That's the part of the story that stays with me, Edmund said. Not what Derek did, not even what happened after. The part that stays is Arthur. Because here is the thing about standing in a room and watching something wrong happen. Silence is never neutral. Silence is a choice, the same as speaking is a choice. And the only difference is that one of them costs you something. Arthur Benton paid that cost, for a stranger, in an airport lounge on a Tuesday morning with nowhere particular to be. Edmund Lawal flew to London and closed a deal worth 9 figures. Derek Soule was eventually let go after 3 additional member complaints surfaced during the review, all with the same signature. The slight recalibration, the extended arm, the request for physical verification that was never asked of anyone else. Brittany transferred to a different location and asked for a fresh start, which she got. Patrice, the server who brought Edmund water without being asked, was recognized in Meridian's internal employee report for the quarter. She said she was just doing her job. Her manager said, respectfully, that she was doing more than that. The airport lounge is still there, still busy, still full of people with boarding passes and carry-ons, and 6 hours to fill before their flight. And somewhere in Savannah, Georgia, a retired school principal named Arthur Benton is going about his life, probably not thinking about any of this. But Edmund Lawal thinks about it. And now, maybe, so to you, would you have written the 6 pages? Or would you have looked back at your phone and told yourself it wasn't your business? Think carefully before you answer.